let's call things as they are. There's something in you that's been clenching its teeth for far too long, pushing hard, forcing every step as if the world would fall apart if you weren't holding it together. Can you feel it? That tightness in your chest. That voice that never goes silent. That urge to run even though you don't know where to. You don't say it out loud, but you know it. You're exhausted from trying everything, from pushing when there's no strength left, from swimming upstream without even knowing if there's a shore. And the most unsettling part is that no one seems to notice. You keep functioning, you keep smiling, you keep performing. But inside something is cracking. What if I told you that all this suffering comes from a single lie you've told yourself so many times that you've accepted it as truth? That lie that says you only move forward if you're in control, that you only live if you strive, that you only matter if you achieve everything quickly. And here's the trick. That lie wasn't born from you. It was planted in you. Since you were a child, they told you that if you don't run, you get left behind. That if you don't fight, you don't deserve. That if you don't do more, then you're not enough. And you, like everyone else, believed it. You learned to run before you learned to pause. You learned to push before you learned to flow. You learned to force before you learned to trust. But I'm going to tell you something no one else does. Something you won't find in self-help books or hear at motivational conferences filled with fake lights. And it's this. The more you force life, the more you resist it. The more you try to control, the further you move from what you truly need. And what you call progress is often just a theater of empty movement. A dance of useless effort performed for an audience that isn't even watching. You think that if you let go, everything will collapse. But what if it's the opposite? What if letting go is exactly what you need for the pieces to finally fall into place? What if the control you think protects you is actually the cage that's keeping you from breathing? There's a cruel paradox running through you. The more you seek peace, the more anxiety you create. The more you want to control, the more chaos you unleash. Because you're operating from fear. Fear of not making it, of not being enough, of falling short. But that fear has a deeper root. And it's this. You're afraid that if you stop pushing, no one will come save you. That if you don't do the work, the world will forget about you. That if you stop insisting, everything will stop. You've been programmed for urgency, for haste, for obsession. And now you're paying the price. And I'll say it plain and simple. Living by force is a silent torture. It's a progressive wear that no one sees, but you feel in every cell. And the worst part is you don't even know what it would be like to live without forcing. Have you ever done it? Have you ever allowed yourself to stop pushing? Have you ever tried trusting that things can arrive without you dragging them in? I'm not talking about giving up. I'm talking about something much more challenging. Stop interfering. Stop imposing. Stop imposing your calendar on a universe that runs on its own rhythms. Because, painful as it is to hear, not everything depends on you. And that's not a condemnation, it's a liberation. But here's the twisted part. You've lived so long believing you're the engine behind everything that letting go feels like betrayal. As if stopping the control meant becoming irrelevant. As if doing nothing meant ceasing to exist. Do you see what you've done? You've confused your worth with your productivity. You've placed your self-esteem in the hands of your performance. And now you don't know who you are unless you're forcing something. This video isn't an invitation to give up. It's a provocation, a crack in the wall of your rigidity, a whisper amid the noise that tells you, maybe, just maybe, life doesn't need to be dominated. It just needs you to step aside. And I know what you're thinking. What if I let go and nothing happens? But the right question is, what if you keep forcing and everything breaks? Because at some point, it will. Your body will speak. Your mind will collapse. Your spirit will give up. No one can live forever at war with themselves. So before you keep running like the world is chasing you, ask yourself, what are you avoiding with all this movement? What truths are you refusing to face when you're not busy? What would happen if today, just for once, you stopped pushing? Because here comes the most uncomfortable part. The universe is not against you. It's just waiting for you to stop getting in the way. There's something more, something rarely mentioned when talking about letting go of control. It's a dimension that often goes unnoticed because it hides behind constant effort. And it's this: the fear of pause, the terror of silence, that uncomfortable sensation that creeps in when everything finally stops and there's nothing left to do, nothing to chase, nothing to solve. That's where many break, because they've built their identity around urgency, around productivity, around doing to be worthy. They taught you to move as if you were running away from something. But they never told you what. And I'll tell you now. You're not running from failure. You're running from yourself, from your inner voice, from your most uncomfortable thoughts, from that mirror that appears when all is calm and forces you to look at who you really are when you're not doing anything, when you're not pleasing, when you're not performing. Just you, with no masks, no achievements to validate you, no results to show off like trophies. And that's the most brutal part. They taught you to associate your value with your usefulness, as if you were only worthy if you produce, if you advance, if you're doing something measurable. But here comes the question that shatters everything. What if the most valuable parts of you can't be measured? What if your essence, your truth, your power only reveal themselves in the pause? When you stop forcing, an entirely different dimension of human experience appears. One that's not based on control, but on presence, on being, just being. And for many, that's unbearable, because being without doing is like emotional nakedness. You see yourself, you feel yourself, you hear yourself, and you can't run. That's why so many people become addicted to movement, not because of ambition, not because of passion, but because of avoidance. Because constant movement keeps you from looking within. And what's inside is scary. But here's where flow begins to make sense. Because flowing doesn't mean drifting without direction. It means aligning with something deeper than control, with an intelligence that doesn't need you to steer it, with a wisdom that doesn't speak through noise, but through silence. And that intelligence doesn't shout, doesn't demand, doesn't run. It just waits for you to be ready to listen. And do you know the sign that you're beginning to flow? The loss of fear toward the void. The ability to be without needing to fill every minute with action. The trust that even in inaction, something important is happening. That the process continues even if you can't see it. That life is also working in your favor when you step aside. The thing is, we don't trust that. We struggle to accept that growth can happen in the pause, because everything in our society is designed to associate progress with agitation. But bamboo, for example, spends years growing underground before it shows its first shoot. Years in silence. And when it finally breaks the surface, it grows faster than any other plant. And how much have you grown without anyone noticing? How many inner battles have you fought that no one saw? How many layers have you shed without receiving applause? That's progress too. That's transformation. And it happens without force. But of course it's not glamorous. You can't show it off. You can't post it online. You can't add it to your resume. And that makes it invisible to a world obsessed with tangible results. But you know it. You feel it. There's something in you that has changed without anyone knowing. Something that reconfigured while you were silent. And that's the power of not forcing. The transformation becomes internal, deep, irreversible. Because you're not changing to prove anything. You're changing because you've understood that you don't need to prove. This is where the old paradigm breaks. It's no longer about winning. It's about freeing yourself. You're no longer seeking recognition. You're seeking authenticity. You no longer need to run. You just need to walk when the step arises from within. And here comes an even deeper idea. When you stop forcing, it's not just you who changes. The people around you change too, because your energy becomes something else. You no longer spread tension, you spread peace. You're no longer a walking alarm. You're a mirror of calm for others. And that impact, even if you don't see it, is immense. Because we're all starving for someone to show us that it's possible to live another way. That not everything is a race. That not everything is pressure. That you don't have to always be on the edge to be worthy. And when you embody that, when you stop forcing and start trusting, you become living proof that another life is possible. Do you see the power in that? But be careful. This isn't easy. It takes courage. Much more than it takes to force things. Because true courage lies in waiting when everything in you wants to rush. In trusting when everything feels uncertain. In saying, I don't know what's coming, but I'm ready to receive it without forcing. And it's there, in that space of conscious surrender, where the magic begins. Where the pieces that didn't fit suddenly find their place. Where the opportunities that never showed up start to appear without you chasing them. Because you're no longer acting from lack, but from openness. You're no longer begging, you're inviting. You're no longer chasing, you're attracting. The universe doesn't respond to shouting. It responds to frequency. And when you let go, your frequency changes. You stop emitting anxiety and start emitting trust. You stop projecting desperation and begin radiating presence. And that changes everything. Do you see now that control is not power? That forcing is not progress? That what truly transforms is not excessive effort, but alignment. You're not here to control life. You're here to co-create with it. And that begins when you let go of the wheel, not to crash, but to realize you were never driving alone. You never were. Life always had a path for you. It just needed you to stop obstructing it. And now that you've made it this far, I want you to pause for a second. Not physically, mentally. I want you to observe what you're feeling in this very moment. Because if something inside you stirred, even if it was just a crack, a doubt, a tiny break in that wall you always raise, then there's no turning back. Something in you has changed. And that change, however small it may seem, is the beginning of a new direction. Maybe you won't notice it yet. Because real change doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't shout. It doesn't make noise. It's more of a whisper that begins to grow stronger in the days that follow. It's a seed planted in your unconscious today, and it will start to grow every time the world tries to push you to run, to force, to pressure. Because now you know there's another way, and that awareness, no one can take it from you. I'm not saying you need to have it all figured out. I'm saying that for the first time, stop looking for clarity as if it's a condition to move. Because sometimes the most powerful movement is internal. Sometimes the bravest step is the one no one sees. The one you take when you decide you're not going to push anymore. That you're done exhausting yourself trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for you. And then, at that exact moment, the world changes. Because everything around you is a reflection of your inner state. Your reality aligns when you align with yourself. And to align with yourself, you have to stop pushing where there's no path. You have to stop climbing walls that lead nowhere. You have to allow yourself to be without doing, without forcing, without proving. And that, believe it or not, is an act of power. The world made you believe that power lies in noise, in force, in insistence. But there's a much more dangerous power, much quieter, much rarer to find. And it's this: the one who doesn't need to impose, because they've understood that what's meant for them doesn't need to be chased. It only needs space to manifest. Now, look at yourself closely. Because if you're here, listening to this, it's not a coincidence. Something in you called for it. Something in you asked for it. And now, that part of you wants more. It wants to let go. It wants to be free. It wants to stop resisting life and start living it. And if something in all of this echoed inside you, if it hurt you in a good way, if it shook your mind or soul, then don't leave without leaving your mark. Leave me a sentence in the comments. I'm ready to let go of control. It doesn't matter if you never comment. Today, do it. Write that. Because it's not just a sentence. It's a symbolic act. It's the first step toward a different kind of life. One where you don't have to force, where you don't have to run, where you don't have to prove anything to anyone. And if this video stirred something in you, subscribe. Not because I say so, but because if you stay, you'll start hearing what the rest of the world is afraid to tell you. You'll start seeing clearly what you've been taught to ignore for years. And here, we're not here to repeat pretty phrases. We're here to shake truths. So follow me if you want more doses of raw reality, unfiltered, relentless, but with purpose. And if you know someone living on autopilot, someone who's been forcing, struggling, wearing themselves down for years, send them this video. No explanation, no intro. Just send it and watch. And now, yes, I'll leave you with this. Don't force the ending. Don't chase answers. Don't build castles on anxiety. Flow as if you already knew everything. Move as if there were no rush. Act as if you already had it, because what's meant for you is already on its way. And when it arrives, it won't ask if you're ready. It'll just knock on your door. And you, for the first time, will be at peace to open it. See you in the next video. Or maybe not. Maybe the next time you hear me, you won't need me anymore.